All right, gang, I'm off to the cinema on this really gloomy and cold winter day to go check out The Space Between Us.
And no matter what happens,
it was worth it. All of it.
It is a new science fiction / romance film about a kid literally born on another planet, in this case Mars, who returns to Earth and falls in love with a young, beautiful woman.
My name is Gardner Elliott. I was born on Mars, but I finally found a reason to go to Earth. I could just see her, you know?
Hence the title, The Space Between Us. Get it? He's from Mars, she's from Earth. Space, like as in outer space. Oh, how diabolically clever. All right, gang, I just got out of The Space Between Us.
Tell us, what's your favorite thing about Earth?
I think it's ultimately telling that the main character in this film frequently asks other characters what their favorite thing about Earth is. Because if that character asked me what my favorite thing about Earth is, I would have to say not having to think about nor remember a film like this a day after I saw it, because quite frankly, it's not very good at all.
No.
I think ultimately this movie is not so much awful as it was just kind of frustrating to sit through, because I really dislike it when films have a really fantastic sort of out there premise and then they do so very little with it. And if anything, The Space Between Us really fails to capitalize on its superb premise in the way that it really just dumbs it down to the lowest common denominator.
Oh, no, this is my life.
This sort of is very prosaic and very predictable, and kind of left a bad taste in my mouth. The film sort of opens a few years into the future where NASA is about to send a group of astronauts to colonize and live on Mars. And NASA is working jointly with this corporation that is run by a character played by Gary Oldman.
In 20 hours, 6 astronauts will travel to Mars, not to visit, but to live there.
So they send all these astronauts out, and wouldn't you know it, one of the female astronauts discovers part way towards her journey to Mars that she is pregnant.
Zero gravity. It's uncharted territory.
One of the crazy questions that I had of this film is how on earth was her pregnancy not screened during what I would assume would be some sort of pre-flight diagnostic of her health? Like, does NASA not screen their astronauts to ensure that they don't have any type of medical ailments, or for that matter, whether or not one of their astronauts may be pregnant? I would like to assume that if an astronaut is pregnant, you're probably not going to let them go on a several-month journey into space and onto Mars.
Come on!
Nevertheless, in the bizarre make-believe La La Land that is this movie, this astronaut manages to avoid any type of medical screening process. She goes on her trip and, again, discovers that she's pregnant on board. And when she arrives on Mars, she gives birth to this child.
We lost her.
Gary Oldman's character, as well as NASA, decides that the best course of action is to not reveal the birth of this Martian baby to anyone on Earth and to cover it up the best they can.
His heart will simply not have the strength in the Earth's gravity. Bones will be brittle.
He wouldn't even survive the trip back to Earth.
So the child remains classified on Mars?
Yes.
So the film then flash forwards 16, 17 years into the future, and this kid, who's now an adolescent, he's played by Asa Butterfield. All he's known is his existence on Mars. I mean, he has read about Earth, he's studied a little bit about Earth.
Gardner is the 16-year-old boy. He's met less than 15 people in his life.
What if no one knows I exist?
He also manages to strike up this long-distance pen pal style relationship with this young girl, played by Britt Robertson.
Study lab is over, gotta go.
Talk tomorrow?
I'm not going anywhere.
He decides that he sort of has had enough of his seclusion on Mars, and he basically jumps ship. So basically, Asa Butterfield's character returns to Earth.
I've got so many questions about Mars.
Not as many as I have about Earth.
And rather predictably, he escapes the quarantine measures of the NASA scientists, because they assume that, you know, his body is not designed to react well to the different gravity of Earth compared to Mars, and this poses a very big health risk to him. But nevertheless, he escapes the quarantine measures to seek out this girl. And when he does find this girl, he decides that, you know what, I need to find out who my birth father is, and then that sort of propels the plot in motion.
It's been a breach.
We need teams from the airport, Amtrak station.
He can't survive.
How do we know he's going to see her?
Because she's the only person he knows on Earth, and he's a romantic.
Hey, Tulsa.
You know, and one little positive, I will say this about the space between us. I really do like Britt Robertson and Asa Butterfield in this film. I think they are a really effective and likable dynamic in this film, even though there's this sort of creepy age difference between them. I mean, Robertson in real life, I think, is in her mid to late 20s, and Butterfield is, I think, like 18 or 19. So
I told you I was taking a trip.
For 7 months, people have phones, you know. You can text, email.
Well, I couldn't contact you. It was a very specific type of travel.
Asa Butterfield is a really interesting young actor. Like, I admired his performance as a child in Martin Scorsese's Hugo. I also thought he was a real strong focal point of interest in films like Ender's Game. I thought he was really stilted and mannered in films like Miss Peregrine's School for Peculiar Children, which came out earlier in the fall. If anything, I think some of his screen performances have ranged from being really stellar to sort of forgettable. I really like what he brought to the table in this film. I thought he brought a lot of charm and charisma to this part that I think he was lacking in that Tim Burton film that he was in last year.
Can you slow down? His gravity is very heavy.
Oh, I'm sorry that this is heavy for you, but...
I liked their chemistry. I thought they were really good in this film together.
Dude, do you have a problem? Because you've definitely been looking at me for the last 4 hours, and it's starting to freak me out.
You're so beautiful.
And then you blurt that out just like that?
The whole film built around them, though, is pure nonsensical hogwash. The film poses so many logical questions at the expense of its, you know, brainless plotting. For example, Butterfield is established as an incredibly intelligent young man who has clearly studied Earth. Yet when he returns to Earth, he is shocked by the appearance of a horse, for example. He doesn't know what it is. And you think, like, so he's never once has Google searched an image of a horse or of the wildlife of Earth. So, I mean...
Oh, it is. It's just a horse. I'm on a road trip with an insane person.
Little things like that just sort of had me like, what? I don't understand that.
What the fuck?
It also doesn't speak well towards the investigative efforts of NASA and perhaps the government to actually locate this kid on the run. I mean, seriously, if they were looking to keep this kid's existence under wraps, you think that they would be launching a larger force to search for this kid. Another thing, too, is Gary Oldman, you know, God love him, you know, one of our most empowered and charismatic actors. I mean, he's a real chameleon when it comes to his, you know, wide resume of different parts, but he kind of just overacts.
His heart can't handle our gravity.
A lot of moments in this film where he just sort of like screams out his lines, and it kind of got a little grating as the film progressed.
You suck! Get it? You suck!
And, you know, the film's plotting, again, is really ludicrous, and it sort of builds towards this very predictable path where you kind of know exactly where it's heading. You don't have to be Nostradamus to predict what's going to happen to the characters in this film. So you...
Gardner?
She wasn't mine.
I think anyone with a reasonable head on their shoulders will be able to predict exactly who this kid's father is within the first several minutes of the movie. I think the film is well cast with Butterfield and Robertson. I think, again, they make a really kind of a cute couple, and I really like the infectious spirit that Robertson brings to the character. And I think the premise is so rich with potential. I mean, and it just goes down this real browbeaten path. And instead of being like a really absorbing and captivating science fiction tale about ideas and characters, it really just becomes this really lame, ham-infested, young adult drama. I won't be thinking about this movie tomorrow when I wake up. I just simply won't. And that's ultimately what makes this film really disappointing. It's an incredibly squandered opportunity for all involved.
Dude, do you have a problem?
So there you go. There's my review of The Space Between Us. Let me know in the comments below what you thought of the film. Once again, thank you very much for watching this review. If you could like it, I'd really appreciate it. If you could subscribe to my channel, that would mean the world to me. Take care, everybody, and I'll see you at the movies.